The experience of using style sheets and creating the basis now for a style sheet, which is your body, and I think I suggest a few other in the uh, syllabus. But what we're focusing on is the body copy, and that's the little text here. Now, there's actually two kinds of style sheets. There's style sheets that operate at the paragraph level, and those are the ones you will be building most of the time. And then there are style sheets that operate at the character level, and those could be used for creating emphasis if you're focusing in on a name. And this happens to be an alumni magazine. It happens to be the college I attended, and I do this magazine on a volunteer basis. So this is all my work, although I'm limited to the photography and the articles that they give me, of course. That art looks terrible. One thing to remember about, we could just look up here, and this is an example of an EPS art, something that came from Illustrator. So it's probably an Illustrator file or an encapsulated PostScript. And that also looks awful. The thing to remember about art looking bad in InDesign is it's always linked to the original file. So if we go to View and we say Screen display performance and we pick high quality display, InDesign will exhibit the higher quality images. And that is true of this one too. You can see the quality just went up. It does tend to slow you down when you're working. So for View, I usually keep my display performance on normal. I'm sorry, wrong place. Oh, fast display is no art at all. Display performance, typical display, and we get that kind of pixely bad look again. But that's fine. They'll print just fine with the high quality art. You just have to make sure that you maintain your links to that original art. And if I go to Window, Links, I didn't have it in there. Let's just lock it in there so I can access it. And it shows that this is still a good link. And as long as you keep your original files that you bring into InDesign, it'll work just fine. Now, here are my paragraph styles for this, and you can see it's quite a bit, including a few that came in with Microsoft Word documents that were imported into this, and usually I delete those. But there's a whole bunch of style sheets I have created to accelerate the design of this document. I don't have to mess around with those formats because I just apply the style to the text and I get the format I want. Now, when you're starting out, before you know all the sophisticated things you can do with style sheets, that's really what style sheets are for you. They're a memory system. But as you become a more advanced user, they also become a way to, well, I mean, it's still a memory system. You could still do everything ad hoc if you wanted to, but your memory gets increasingly more sophisticated and holds more and more items. So right now, this semester at this point, we're talking about sizes, and we're talking about leading, and we're talking about indents. We're talking about pretty basic things. But in this case, you've seen examples of style sheets with lines built in, and you can also build a character style into a paragraph style. So if, for example, if I wanted to take this word, and I have to check this out, and I can go to my character styles, and you see I have a whole bunch fewer of them. And the reason for that is they come up less often, and B, you can often use them in multiple purposes. So for example, my bold style, which happens to be the sans serif, I can use that. Oh, I have to check that out too. And I can also apply it there. And so it works in both of those paragraph styles. So generally, you want your character styles to be, to just do something really specific. And your paragraph styles, you want to pour the full power of those character styles into it. And one of those powers is you can build a character style, in this case, that same bold style, into this paragraph. And as soon as I change this from body bold lead in to body no indent, that goes away. There's no bold at the beginning. So that can be save time as well. So what we're going to do is, in this video, is make your own style sheets from some of the decisions you have made, starting with your template. And let's just switch over to this document where I have made some decisions about type. I haven't made all the decisions I'm going to make, but I've made a few. Let's zoom in on this. And I've also made it for a couple of styles, but you currently see this document probably looks quite a bit like yours, is that everything in this is defined as basic paragraph. And if you bring in text just from anywhere, that is usually what it'll come in as, is that just plain basic paragraph style. Now, you'll notice a difference in how it's treated, though, or how it's displayed. When I click on it here, you see a little bit of a plus symbol. And that plus just indicates that it isn't this basic starting style. That basic paragraph is just the default style. So even if I was starting with this style, it's sort of a style sheet. You could say that everything you do in InDesign is a style sheet, but if you're not making your own style sheets, you're just kind of overriding it. And so looking at this, I've applied some changes to these, but they're all the same sort of, you can see their basic style sheet with what are some overrides. But what I want to do is I want to make these styles permanent so that I can access them for future design work. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it the quick and easy way, which is to just use these decisions, and I could do that just by having my cursor in this, or I could highlight it. It doesn't need to highlight all of it, some portion of it. And under paragraph style, I'm going to go to my drop-in menu, and as you can see, I'm recording a part of my screen, but InDesign doesn't know that, but that won't affect this much. I'll say new paragraph style, and I'll bring that wholly in the window. And as we discussed, there's a whole bunch of things this style can be, but I have done fairly basic stuff to it. I've picked a font, I've picked a weight of that font, in this case black, a size which is 27 points, and a leading which is 26 points. And I also have tracked it a little bit tighter so the letters are a little bit closer. So that's not a whole lot to do to it. I mean, when you consider all these things we could do, but it's a start of a functioning style. Now, the second thing I always do is give my style a name. So I'm going to just call this small head. And then the second thing I'm going to turn your attention to is I am going to say apply style to selection. And that just means that when I say OK, it now is that style. Now let's just do that again for this, and let's do that again. Let's say new paragraph style. But to see the advantage of this, I'm going to unclick that this time. I'm not going to apply the style to the selection. And we'll just call this deck. And I will say OK, and you can see all the decisions I made there for that style. Again, not a whole lot, but this is just a starting point. Now the byline, I want a little bit more room for it around it. And one could, add a return. And honestly, sometimes I do, but sometimes you want to control your space a little bit more precisely than that. And we are in the type space up here, and there is just so much type options that there's actually two sets of menus. And that's one of the confusing things about InDesign, of the many confusing things about InDesign, but there's a character level one and a paragraph level one. I'm just going to switch to the paragraph one, and you can see you're getting different options. Now, the bigger your screen gets, Some of the options in character style will start to appear later at the end of this screen. I have to pull my window on my monitor in InDesign all the way to the very edges of my screen to get everything it offers. But everything is here under one of these two, or most things are there under one of these two. Not always in the most intuitive place. So, for example, letting the space between lines of type within a paragraph is with the characters. You'd think it would be a function of paragraph rather than character, but it is with the characters. And the letting that is above and below paragraphs is a function of paragraph, which you would expect. So I'm going to put a little space above and below that paragraph, and I'm just going to click on a space until I see something more or less I like. I think I like the 6 in this case, and I'll put just a little bit of space above the byline, and I will say OK. And so now let's give this a style. So let's say new paragraph style. And this time I'm going to go back to saying apply style to selection. That's the way I usually like to work. And I'm going to say this is byline. And it's just called the byline because it starts with the word by. And I'll say OK. And we'll say OK. So now I have the raw text and I want it to look like this text. Now this text happened to come, I'm just going to hit my W button so we can see a preview. This text just happens to come from today's Washington Post, or whatever day's Washington Post I made this video. And when it came in raw, it came in with extra returns between paragraphs. And I want to get rid of those. It also came in with another problem that I want to show you. Instead of having a real M dash, it has a space, 2 hyphens, and another space. And I want to get rid of that, and there's probably other little bits of web convention in here that is really not conventional for print. So I want to clean those up, and I'm going to use a special script for that. I'm going to go down to Utilities, and Scripts. And here they are. And I usually keep this in my toolbar as well. So I'm just going to put it there. I crashed right before making this video, and so I lost some of my recent decisions. And there's community scripts. If you're trying to do something complex, there's often a bunch of scripts. I've got a few that you can download and that can automate your processes. But there's also ones that come with the application. And there are a few samples, and they're written in AppleScript and JavaScript, but they're exactly the same scripts. These are just sort of demonstration scripts that you can use. And some people can script in Apple, and some people script in Java, and some people like me can script in neither. But the one I use most often is find change by list. And you just double click on that, and it asks you if you want to do the whole document or the story, or if you have your text highlighted, selected rather, it will just do that what you have selected. So I'm going to say selected story because I don't think it'll find anything in that one, and I'll say OK. And it got rid of the returns, and let's just scroll down and look at the M dash. Oh, it leaves me with spaces on one side. So if I'm going to be fussy, I'm going to go to Edit, Find Change, and I'm just going to type a space and go to my drop down, say hyphens and dashes, M dash, space, and in the interest of time, I'll just type up M dash. Key command for that is Option Shift hyphen on a Mac anyway, and I'll just say change all. And so that can also be a way, I think we had one without a space in front of it, so it was a little bit inconsistent, Washington Post. And change all. So search can be a way to clean up text, but define change by list is often a quicker and a faster way. So the first thing I'm going to do is just select it all. And I could say, oh, but I never defined my body. Ha ha ha. So let's just define my body text. So let's say new paragraph style, and I'll just call this body text. And click OK. So now I can just select this all, Command A, and then I could make this my deck. And I can make this my small head. And I can make this my byline. And all those decisions and many, many more possible ones got built into those decisions. So let's say you've made your style sheets and you want to change how they function. So let's say you want your deck to be blue. So I am just going to say, let's make this just cyan, 100% cyan. And there it is. And I can put my cursor in this. And I can go back to paragraph style, and I'm seeing that same little plus mark saying I did something to it after I changed the style sheet. And some people are really fussy about never changing a style sheet. It should always be the pure styles. I'm willing to loosen or tighten text. I'm willing to sometimes use a style sheet as a foundation. Like if I have a pull quote or something like that, a little something someone said in the article, I might just set a foundational style, and then for that specific article, I might change it to match that article's style. So let's just say, but in this case, I'm going to say redefine style, and this all changed to the cyan. Because that is now the foundation of the style. And anything you do, once you've given a style a name, it should change everything right along it. So this didn't change because I left it off of, I left it on basic paragraph. I didn't say apply style to name. But if I do this, and I say deck, now it's blue. And I would save that step if I make sure that box is checked. In this case, let's just make this magenta, and go back to my paragraph styles and say redefine style, and all of those things change all across the board. And if you think about doing something like a 50-page report where this is a repeating style that recurs 30 or 40 times within the document, it could be a tremendous time saver. And all you did essentially was give your design decisions a name in your paragraph style. And as those style sheets pile up, it's really important to make sure that you're naming them. You could name it just style 1, style 2, style 3, but they get really hard to keep track of. So it's just really important to give them a name, I think. So I want these back to be black again. And so let's just, I don't even need all that. Let's go to colors, and I'll say black. I think I have to do these separately. We'll say redefine style, and I could do this with this one, redefine style, and those change. So again, the decisions we've made here, we probably could remember the size and whether this font is justified or flush left. This is flush left, that's justified. The body is justified, but it saves me the trouble from doing it. And as your knowledge of what you can do with type in InDesign increases, it will just save you an increasingly amount of time. A style sheet is not something really, nothing in InDesign is something that bosses you around, but it's just a tool for getting to good results more quickly. And I've had students who save off putting their style sheets until the end of the project, and this is sort of like buying your hammer after you've driven in the nails, because you've done the work of the memory and of moving stuff around, and you've done all of that stuff, and the style sheets are there just as a residue rather than as a tool that you can use immediately. I will use them often, even if I'm doing a one-page document. because they can save time as you're refining it, because you could just refine it once, redefine your style, and however many instances of that design, you know that it's going to be exactly the same. So what I would like to finish this video talking about is basing one style on another. And this is a really powerful feature, but it also can lead to trouble in the sense that you can accidentally base one style on another. And if you do that, sometimes you'll redefine like the parent style, and all the styles that are children of that style will change along with it in ways that are undesirable. So let's look at a new checkbox. Actually, let's make the change we want to make to this first. I tend to not indent my first paragraph because it's a little bit redundant. We see that this is the start of the article. We see that it comes after the byline and the head and deck. No one needs this indent to know that this is a paragraph. And so to me, it just gives me like a little bump in that's a little bit distracting, and it doesn't line up neatly with the display type that comes above it. And so I like to eliminate that indent. And my indent is set here for 9, which is the same size as my font. We have to go to characters to see that, but we can see it's 9. And we can see it's set on 12, a little bit loose, but it seemed like it was necessary for this font. It looked too dense on a tighter measure. So I am going to eliminate this indent just by making it smaller, and I can make it bigger by just going the reverse way, of course, but in this case, I want no indent at all. So it's down to 0. And to me, that just looks more neat. But again, because I'm going to be using this style everywhere, I'm going to say new paragraph style. And it has done this for me by default. It says based on body style. And it is showing body text in the style settings plus first indent equals 0. So the only thing I did to that that's different is I eliminated that indent. And so it's showing me this is my style plus the indent. And if I said based on no paragraph style, it's showing me all the no indent plus all the decisions I made before. So it becomes an independent style if I were to do that. But in this case, I want it based on body style. I want it to be based on it because if I ever change the parent style, the child style will change right along with it. So I'm going to call this body no indent. And I will say, okay. Oh, what missed? Oh, no, it did apply, so I must have made a mistake somewhere. So let's just take that back to 0, just by typing a 0 into that. And let's redefine style. When I was demonstrating, I must have not gone back to the right place. So body no indent, and let's just make sure that it is based on body text, and we are good. So now, I have that style and I could apply it anywhere, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the foundational style, and I think we're going to run into trouble on this side because I only based my style sheet on the first paragraph. These are, yeah, that's after that second one, it's still basic paragraph. So those probably won't change, but these will. So let's take this one and let's just do something pretty simple to it. Let's just increase the lead. And let's just change the font as well. Let's just make it so it'll be really obvious on screen. Let's just make it italic. So now I'm going to say redefine that style. And you can see that we got the more lead and the italic up and down. Oh, and we based it on this one. So we don't have that. That's a paragraph style we use to create the style. So I would have to, because these are still basic paragraph, we have to apply body text and then body no indent. and we see those other decisions populate through. So that's another way that style sheets could be confusing for a beginner, is once you implement a workflow where you're using them, you have to make sure that they are actually applied everywhere where you expect them. That's a little bit easier to diagnose than if a style is errantly based on another style. So that's the main thing. What I want to talk about with is paragraph styles. Again, they seem like an extra step, but it's an extra step that just takes a short period of time, and it's an extra step that saves you a lot of time in the future. The other thing you can do with them is you could build them into what's called a template. And so let me do that. Let me just, we probably not have these on the page, but I don't want to delete them, so I'm just going to drag them off. So I'm going to say File, Save As, and I will just save it to my desktop. And I'm going to call it whatever the magazine, my magazine's name is. Let's just call it Esquire Template. And I am going to save it as a template and close out of this. And now I can open it. And when it opens, you notice it has no title. It saves as a fresh document, but it has all the decisions I've made built into this document so that I'm ready to start with these. And I think it's a good idea if you have separate sections or separate articles to build them on separate templates. And I will show you how to thread them all together at the end of the semester into a single PDF that will represent the entire contents of your magazine. But I like doing that for a couple of reasons. One, it makes your file size a little bit smaller, so you operate a little bit more quickly. And two, it's rare that you lose a document anymore. Well, it's rare that I do, but students who are have a little bit more chaotic lives than I do sometimes have documents go south on them. They just can't open. And if that happens to you, there are a couple of ways to recover them, but they don't always work. It's if all your pages and all your work is not in a single document, if one document does happen to go south, that's just a lot less work you have to recreate. So it's good to work with more smaller documents usually. And in my next videos, I will be talking about character styles and how to build a character style into your paragraph style, at least in a couple of ways. There's a lot of ways to do it. And I'll also be talking about the first working section of the magazine that we'll be on to, which is the brief section, and I will be talking about infographics.